All right, so in that scene, this is Sparta. What do you guys see? I asked you to compare Spartans to Christians and that Persian emissary as a demon of fornication. What did you see? Makes all the difference in the world. Tons of stuff. What did you see? Sir? Say again?
You have to submit for you to get like all these great things.
Yeah. Yeah, the demons, these demons of fornication, pornography, lust, they'll ask you, well, not ask you, they're trying to trick you into submitting. And as soon as you submit, what happens? As soon as you submit, what happens? I got him. Did I violate his free will? See, we did this on last week when I showed you. This is one of the definitions of sin, giving demons permission to operate in your life. I didn't do anything. All I did was just present something to him, and we think it's an opportunity. It's not an opportunity. Sin is never an opportunity. Sometimes it's an opportunity presented itself. You're looking at it wrong. That's death. Right? And so now this is an agreement. And now I have permission to, this is possession. I have permission to possess his hand. Yes? What else did you see? Did you catch what she said? Say it nice and loud. You didn't say that nice and loud.
Christian women only give birth to real men.
That's right. Can you imagine somebody saying that? Only Christian women give birth to real men. Dude, the world would have a field day with that. I don't care. That's awesome. Go ahead, Sandy.
My favorite line that he said.
Go ahead.
He said, "You insult my queen."
That's right. He was mad.
All I needed to see in the movie.
He said, who is this woman who thinks she can talk to men like this? Right? And so Leonidas, I'm going to make a note of that. I'm going to come back to that. And he checked him. And I love it. And see, you as a man, as we're looking at the scene, you as a man need to understand, because I already know how lust and porn and fornication enters your mind, enters our minds. And it's a challenge with all of us. This is why I present you guys with the cowboy challenge. You know, when's the last time you masturbated? We've gone over this. And some of you, I don't want to look at some of you, because if I look at you, I know what's going to happen. You're going to go like this. As soon as I look at you, you're going to look away. And so, but if you've hung around me any length of time, I look at you and say, when was the last time you masturbated? Because this is something you need to get, I was going to say get a hold of, but see, some people get stuck on that, and then they'll stay right there with that pun, right? But this is something you need to master in your life. It's a discipline. You got to stop doing it. It's a sin. I explain all that in part 2. All right, so what I'm getting at, you need to look at your barracks room, your home, your personal life. You know, I already know. These demons come at you and they attack you and they want your submission. What you have to evaluate, just like King Leonidas did, he looked around, he looked at his land, he looked at the people, the kids, he looked at his son, he looked at his wife, and he's processing all this. And he decides, no, this is not freedom. He said, I can't talk about this, but that's not what freedom is. Freedom is not the ability to do what you want anytime you want to do it. Freedom is the ability to do the right thing. Some people say, well, I'm free to, get booty calls. I'm free to sleep around. I'm free to hook up. That's not freedom. That's bondage. So I'll leave that alone at that. So what you have to get to a point where enough is enough. This is Barracks 2667, room 203, boom, and kick that demon out. Seriously, you guys know what I'm talking about. This is, the Smith home, boom, and kick that thing out. Take a stand. There's a fight right there. Got it? Making sense? Okay, so we're going to jump into this. Okay, Hosea 4:12. Don't turn there. We'll get there in a minute. But Hosea 4:12 says, the spirit of whoredoms has caused my people to err. The spirit of whoredoms has caused my people to err. What is whoredoms? Take a guess. Take a guess. You know already, right? What's whoredoms?
Obsessions.
Obsessions? Okay, the literal definition of whoredoms. Prostitution. That's not literal. You're defining it. I want the literal, what the word actually means, what it is, the root of the word. What is it? I'll give you a clue. It's a compound word. 2 words. Whore and dumb. Now, it's not a dumb whore. I kid you not. I've had grunts sitting right here. They said, a dumb whore? No, that's not what. Whore, dumb. What is dumb? It means a domain. What's a domain? Not quite. That's close. That's close. What is a domain? Technically, what is a domain? That's it right there. It's a place where rulership is exercised. Governing is exercised. It's a place with rules. Does Camp Schwab have rules? Or Camp Schwab's rules different from Hansen? Yeah, a little bit different, right? Does Japan, is it a domain? Yeah. Are there rules in Japan that are unique to Japan but not in America? Of course. So now that we know that that's the whore's domain, what is the domain of the whore? Because it says, the spirit of the whore's domain, the domain of the whore has caused my people, not any people, but my people to err. And see, this is what happens when you have sex. Anytime you have sex, because you're a three-part being, I got to say this. When you have sex, you're a three-part being. All sex marries you. We went over all this. I can't go look at the YouTube videos. All sex marries you. Anytime you have sex, whether it's porn, masturbation, whether it's with somebody else, you get married on 3 levels. The 3 levels to you are this right here: body, soul, and spirit. That's your body, that plastic. Your soul is that water that's on the inside. I'll explain this in a second. And that's your spirit man inside there. Got it? You're a 3-part being. And when you have sex, you're married on those 3 levels. We talked about levels 1 and 2. We're going to be talking about the spirit tonight. What happens when I have sinful sex? Because just like I took his hand a minute ago, there was an agreement that was made. And now spirits are involved. Are they angelic spirits, heavenly spirits, or demonic spirits? Real simple. Was what you did sinful? Demonic spirits. This is why I asked the question about, what are your thoughts about a threesome? That's where that question comes from. What are your thoughts about a threesome? Because the threesome I'm talking about, God is a part of that. You want God to be a part of that. You, your spouse, and God. You want God to be a part of that. And you study the Song of Solomon. I'll get to that in about 2 slides. And you'll see God approves what's going on. Right? But we can't say that about 99% of our sexual activity. Okay, so the spirit of whoredom. Let's get into this. Can a Christian be possessed? Very quickly. I'm not going to get into this. The church has been arguing this, debating this for years. Can a Christian be possessed? Some people say, well, you know, if he's born again, he can't be possessed. Can a Christian be possessed? Because I'm here to tell you, I've seen some things. And these are Christians manifesting demons. Explain that. The book says one thing. Seminary says one thing. It says, no, Christians can't be possessed, but they can be oppressed. That hasn't been, something's wrong either. They're not fully telling me the truth, or my experience is wrong. And I'm telling you right now, my experiences, I've seen some things. So if I just had to answer this question, I'd say yes, they can be possessed. Don't get wrapped around the wheel about possession. It's not a big deal. It's just most possession, I said this on last week, is not what you see in Hollywood with that thing floating around, neck doing a 180 and 360, whatever, spitting all that. I've never seen anything that bad. I'm sure it's out there. This is possession. See how simple? This is possession, most possession I've seen. It's real simple like this. All right, to varying degrees. Excuse me. So, well, when we're talking about possession, body, soul, and spirit, there's some scriptures that talk about the body, soul, and spirit. Don't turn it yet, because we're going to go to Hosea. Take a picture of these slides if you need to. 1 Thessalonians 4 said, this is the will of God, even your sanctification, that you would abstain from fornication, that you would know how to possess your body in sanctification and in honor, which means this is the will of God. He wants you to control your body, possess your body in a way that's pleasing to him. And the reality is, if you're not controlling your body, someone or someone else is. That's called, you're losing possession of your body. That one, Luke 21:19, Jesus is speaking here. He says, in patience, you possess your souls. Flip that around. What happens in your impatience? If in my patience, I maintain possession of my soul, when I'm impatient, what do? I'm going to lose possession of my soul. And so how many of you, show of hands, be honest, show of hands, you were impatient to have sex and did not wait to get till you were married? Yeah, me too. So then there's consequences for that. There are absolutely consequences for that. And I'll get into some of them. I went some of them last week, but I'm going to show you some things here in a minute. And then there's your body, there's your soul, there's your spirit. You study that out. And it's talking about the mystery of sex. The mystery of sex is very, very spiritual. And he says the two become one. The two become one. We read that in Genesis when Adam and Eve got together. But right here it says, we just prayed that in prayer. Shall I then take the members of Christ and make them members of an harlot? No. He says, because we already know that whatever we do with our sex, there's a marriage that occurs. And so if it's sinful sex and it's a spiritual thing going on, we're talking about demonic covenants. I'll get to that in a second. So if you want to know about possession, go study those scriptures. That's just a start. There's this thing called pollution. We went over this last week. Right here it talks about verse 1, Deuteronomy 23, verse 1 says, if a man has been wounded or his testicles or his sexual organ have been cut off or crushed or maimed in battle, he could not enter the church. He could not enter the tabernacle of the Lord. The principle was Old Testament, but it still applies today. If your sexuality is compromised, if your sexuality is not intact, it's going to be extremely difficult for you to experience God fully. This is why God, when he went to circumcise man, he says, we're going to do a new thing. We're going to do a new covenant. And in Genesis 17, he said, dedicate your sexual organ to me. He says, dedicate circumcision. Dedicate that thing to me. Not your hands, not your eyes, not your heart, not your feet, not your words, not your mind. He says, give me that. Dedicate that to me. That's another reason why this is the only sin in the Bible God tells you to run from. The only sin in the Bible. Sexual sins, run from those. Because you don't want to fall there. So there's this pollution thing that goes on. Now, let me show you something here. What did I say this plastic was? That's your body. And what's the water? That's your soul. What's that marble in there? That's your spirit. Now, this guy has never sinned. He's pure. Let's just talk about sexual sins. Now, I'm going to do this. See if I can do this, because I usually get my fingers green doing this. Okay. How many of us have only sinned sexually one time? Okay, this guy only sinned sexually once. Now watch this pollution. This is sexual sin. One drop, if I can get one drop in there. That was one. Did it change his soul? So how many drops do I need to put in there for us? A big bottle. Let's just put a couple. I mean, look at that. See, that soul is messed up. Your soul is your will, your intellect, and your emotions. Your decision maker. Your doer, your thinker, and your feeler. That green stuff right there, that's your soul. Not your brain. It's what's inside that brain. That's your soul. Your will, your intellect, and your emotions. Your doer, your thinker, and your feeler. And what happens, did your spirit man get affected by the pollution? It's affected, but was it infected? It can't be infected. And so it's in there, but do you think there's an impact on your spirit? Oh yeah, definitely an impact on your spirit and your body. I'll prove that by scripture in a second. So let's put another drop in there. A couple drops. Okay, that's like 4 or 5 drops. What does our pollution look like sexually? I'll leave that alone for a second. What does our pollution look like sexually? Imagine what we're walking around with, hundreds and hundreds of sexual sins, what our pollution looks like and how it's affecting us. A lot of times we don't even want to talk about this because we don't want to know how it's affecting us. And we try to outrun that stuff. You can't outrun it. It's going to catch up to you. I'll explain. So if you read Habakkuk 2:15, he even talks about how he's talking to these people. He says, you're the kind of people that get people drunk just so you can look at them naked and take advantage of them. I know people who've done this. Getting girls drunk. You know, there's an old saying, a cliche. They say candy is dandy, but liquor is quicker. You ever heard that? Yeah. Dude, I had a guy. Dude, don't you ever do this. You guys better not do this. If you do this, I pray that God strikes you down on the spot. I don't say that lightly. I mean that. This guy, you know, we're trading notes. This is before I was saved, but we're trading notes on, you know, how to pick up chicks and whatnot. And this guy was smooth. And he said, well, what I do, you know, I meet a girl, you know, I'm going to take her out to dinner and all this other stuff. And he says, right after dinner, because, you know, it's still up in the air, I'm trying to get some. He says, I'll take her to the furniture store in the evening. And then we'll go through the furniture store, we'll look at the living room, and then we'll look at the kitchen sets and whatnot. He said, but then we'll go to the bedroom, yeah. But he said, what always got him, I take him to the baby bassinets and cribs. And I just say, I can't wait to have a family. Can't wait to have kids. And what does the girl do? She's listening. What is she doing? She gushes. She's like, oh, I got a good one. And so she's going to do what it takes to keep him because she thinks he's a good one. And he's lying to her. He's manipulating her. That's pretty low. I'm telling you, don't do it. Don't do it. So, and then you read all that. That talks about fornication. There's a lot. That Proverbs chapter 5, Proverbs chapter 7, and just go read that. We ask the question a lot of times, and we don't get an answer. I've heard courts-martial talk about this. What would possess him to do that? What would possess her to do that? But you don't answer the question. You ever heard that? What would possess someone to do that? What would possess that priest to do that? What would possess that dad to do that? What would possess that wife to do that? And no one answers the question. Even two things. What possesses somebody to do some stupid thing sexually? What possesses people? I'd say that's number one right there. It's your flesh. A lot of people, I've met guys, and I've often wrestled with this myself, like, we just got to reading this in Romans chapter 7 just a few minutes ago. And why do I do what I do? I know what I'm doing is wrong, but I do it anyway. I know this is right, but I don't want to do that. This is Paul going back and forth. He says, what's wrong with me? That's your flesh. That's your sinful flesh. It's not you inside, it's your flesh making you do some bad things. I'm making this really, really simple. Making sense, guys? And so your flesh primarily, but secondary is this demon spirits. They take over your soul. They take over your soul. If you're a born-again Christian, they can't get your spirit. But they can affect your spirit. They can influence your spirit, but they cannot possess your spirit, man. That's where God is at. There's so much I could really share on that. I have to say this. If you're trying to figure out how do I stay strong because I don't have the willpower, that's your soul, to do right. How many of you have made New Year's resolutions and didn't follow through with them? After 1 week, here it is the turn of the new year, and we say, I'm going to pray more, I'm going to PT more, I'm going to save more, and after a week, it's all out the window. What's wrong with your will? What's wrong with your soul? Something's compromised, something's lacking. And so this is basically, in a nutshell, what's happening. This is your soul wanting to go this way, right? You're a three-part being. That's your, I'm sorry. That's your spirit man. I want to get this right because the left side is usually the bad side. Spirit, body, soul. Okay, so your spirit man wants to do God stuff. There's something inside you that wants to do God stuff, and you want to go this way. There's a tug of war going on. But you feed your flesh, and your flesh is stronger, it's going to drag you this way into sin, bad stuff. Yes? What's in the middle? Spirit, body, soul. And your soul, that's your decision maker. That's that thing right there. And if it's full of weak bricks, you're going to fall again and again and again and again and again. And you're going to ask for forgiveness again and again and again. And so here's the key. What's going to determine which way you go? Say it nice and loud. Whichever one you feed the most. This is why you as a Christian have to be reading your Bible. If you're not reading your Bible, your spirit man is weak. This thing is like just weak. And your flesh is strong, and it's just going to drag you this way. But if you feed your spirit man, with prayer, Bible study, just quality time with the Lord, meditation, dude, this thing is strong, and it's going to drag your carcass this way. You guys know what I'm talking about. You ever felt them spiritual highs? And then sometimes you feel low, like, man, where's God at? Guarantee you haven't been reading your Bible. I guarantee you. But that was free. That wasn't even in the notes. So, giving demons permission to operate in our lives. Okay, turn to Hosea chapter 4. Excuse me. Hosea chapter 4. Now I'm going to read this in a message because it kind of really gives a graphic illustration of what's happening. Help your neighbor get in there. Look left and right. Help your neighbor get there. If you're in Ezekiel, Daniel, and Hosea, look left and right. Look, where are you at? What does that say? It's past that. Just past it. Ezekiel, right after Daniel. Amos. Hosea. Let's find chapter 4. Everybody there? Help your neighbor. In the interest of time, help your neighbor get there. Okay. Is everybody there? We're good? I'm going to start reading this in the Message. I'll read it verse by verse because I know you have different translations, but you'll be able to keep up. So now check this out. This is God talking to his people, and he's upset. And God says, verse 6, Hosea chapter 4, verse 6, he says, excuse me, he says, my people are ruined because they don't know what's right or true. Because you've turned your back on knowledge, I've turned my back on you priests. Because you refuse to recognize the revelation of God, I'm no longer recognizing your children. Verse 7, the more priests, the more sin. They traded in their glory for shame. Verse 8, they pig out on my people's sins. They can't wait for the latest in evil. Verse 9, the result, you can't tell the people from the priests and the priests from the people. I'm on my way to make them both pay and take the consequences of the bad lives they've lived. 10, they'll eat and be as hungry as ever, have sex and get no satisfaction. They walked out on me, their God, for a life of rutting with whores. 11, wine and whiskey leave my people in a stupor. 12, they ask questions of a dead tree. They expect answers from a sturdy walking stick. They're talking about idolatry here. Drunk on sex, they can't find their way home. They've replaced their God with their genitals. 13, they worship on the tops of mountains, make a picnic out of religion. Under the oaks and elms on the hills, they stretch out and take it easy. Before you know it, your daughters are whores and the wives of your sons are sleeping around. 14, but I'm not going after your whoring daughters or the adulterous wives of your sons. It's the men who pick up the whores that I'm after, the men who worship at holy whorehouses, a stupid people ruined by whores. 15, you've ruined your own life, Israel, but don't drag Judah down with you. Don't go to the sex shrine at Gilgal. Don't go to that sin city, Bethel. Don't go around saying, God bless you, and not mean it, taking God's name in vain. 16, Israel is stubborn as a mule. How can God lead him like a lamb to open pasture? 17, Ephraim is addicted to idols. Let him go. 18, when the beer runs out, it's sex, sex, and more sex. Bold and sordid debauchery. How they love it. 19, the whirlwind has them in its clutches. Their sex worship leaves them finally impotent. Now that's a lot, and I understand it's the message, but there's a message trying to be communicated to us, and the message does a good job of really picturing it. So don't get your panties in a bunch thinking that, well, that's the message. It's not literal translation. The literal doesn't say it like that. The literal just kind of, what the message does expounds and gives you a picture, a greater understanding. So anyway, literal and paraphrase have their place. So what did we just read? In verse 6, you want to notice he said, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Not anybody. People who say they know me. I'm here to tell you, personally, what I've experienced in the church, I'd say 85% of men in the church struggle with porn and masturbation. Probably greater than that. Most studies that I've read, Christian studies, Barna Group, all these other studies, they'll say Christians are lying on these surveys. And it's usually around 60-65%. It's not even. Just do your own poll this week. Just ask people, hey, do you masturbate? Don't be freaky about it. Just ask them. Just ask them, hey, I'm doing a poll. How many people actually masturbate? Who doesn't masturbate? And probably 90% of everyone you encounter, if they're honest, they'll tell you they masturbate. And I'll be honest with you. The people that in America, I have to say this. In America, what I found, where men are concerned and masturbation is concerned, that there are only two kinds of men where masturbation is concerned. Those who admit it and those who lie about it. Just about every man in America that I've talked to, sometimes they'll deny it. Oh, I don't do that. And then you get to talking to them, and then okay, it was me. I did that. But I'll be honest with you. I have missionary friends in Africa, really close missionary friends. We've had some in the brig. They were African, but they were strong Christians. And when the topic of masturbation came up, they said, that is not something we do in our society. He said, that's a Western thing. That's a Western thing. You study that word masturbation, it literally means self-abuse, to abuse yourself with your hand. That's the literal definition. And he says, in Africa, most countries, we don't do that. If we're going to have sex, we're just going to rape a woman or something. But we don't masturbate. Yeah, that's a Western thing. That's that freedom thing, that misunderstanding of freedom. I'm free. That's not freedom. So he says, my people, not just anybody, but my people. Verse 12, he says, the spirit of whoredoms has caused my people to err. The next slide, I'll tell you what happens when we enter the whore's domain. You'll see that in a second. Verse 14, why does God say, I'm not after your whoring daughters. I'm not after the adulterous wives of your sons. I'm after the men. Why is he after the men? Say again? Men are supposed to lead. What are you going to say? That's very true. Does that mean, I got it, time out. Does that mean you as a man, are supposed to find a woman and say, follow me. I love you. Marry me. Follow me. I mean, more young knuckleheads who think that's what that means. I can't wait to get married so I can lead her. Bruh, that's not what that means. I'm serious, guys. Knuckleheads, man. We mean well. But he says, I'm after the men. Why? Yeah, you guys got it, but give me more. Why? Why men? Come on. You know why? Because he said, I put you in charge. I put you in charge. When he went to the garden after Adam and Eve fell, who did he come looking for? Who did God look for? Did he say, oh, Eve, oh, Eve, oh, Eve, where are you, Eve? He said, Adam. Adam, where are you? He's looking for Adam because Adam's in charge. All right, and so, men. There's a mantle of leadership on you. And I'll say this, and I'm going to move on to the next point. There's a mantle of leadership on every one of you men. You're a leader, whether you know it or not, whether you like it or not, whether you believe it or not. You are a leader. The real question is, where are you leading people today? Where are you leading people? Are you leading them with principles from the Bible? Are you leading them with, into church? Are you leading them into Christ? Or are you leading them into more sin? Or are you just silent about things and not saying anything to them? You hear that? You hear how quiet it gets? Every time I teach this series, it gets so quiet. I'm used to it. He says, Israel, my people, you've played the harlot. What does harlot mean? Cheater. Give me more. Adulterer. Give me more. Modern day vernacular. Whore, street language. Ho! He's saying, my people are a bunch of hoes. You think I'm kidding? And this is why when you repent of this stuff, you don't sit there and say, Lord, I backslid. I'm telling you right now, it's not like that at all. I'll lay down on my face before the Lord and say, Lord, I've been whorish. I'm so nasty right now. I'm filth right now, Lord. I'm sorry. I need you to help me. You think I'm kidding? This is not the time to sugarcoat this repentance. Describe what you did. Get a vision of just how. You know what? This is coming up for Easter. As gruesome as what happened on the cross, and we I touched on this on Saturday. As gruesome, we try to describe what was going on the cross. What were some words that we used on Saturday? Torture. Give me more. Excruciating. Torment. Wicked. Twisted. Painful. Shameful. All of that. And you probably couldn't even stare at it. You're like, oh God, this is just it's so bad. It's just nasty. It's gross. It's horrible. I can't even look. As gross as that was, as evil as that was, our sins are like 100 times worse. Our sins, 100 times worse, which is why he went through that. As bad as that was, get a vision that our sins are worse. Let that sink in. Seriously. Israel plays the harlot. And this is the thing I know. This is why the church is so weak. This is the number one reason why the church is so weak. Men primarily supposed to be leading the church, but if you have a masturbation habit, if you have adultery habit, porn habit, things like this, you're a whore. You're cheating on God. If you're married, you're cheating on your wife. If you're single, you're cheating on your future wife. You haven't even met her yet and you're cheating on her. This is us. And this is why the church is so weak. I showed you last week the illustration with all the shields, or 2 weeks ago with all the shields and everything. With the shields, the men are all standing there with these shields and swords, and there's all three of them. They're standing next to each other. But the guy in the middle was compromised. He was trying to hide all his sins. Remember that? Remember that? Now imagine that was just 33%. There were three guys. Just the guy in the middle represents a third. That's 33%. Imagine an army of the Lord with 80 to 85% of the men compromised, not fighting. Kind of makes sense now, doesn't it? Why so much confusion and wickedness is taking place right now. But oh Lord, if you get a hold of us, Lord. The whirlwind, in verse 19, it talks about the whirlwind. I don't know if you understand a whirlwind, but you've seen tornadoes. You ever seen HD footage of tornadoes? And you'll see tractor trailers. I've seen some with cows and horses getting tossed up and down. That's the whirlwind. It says your sexual sins get you caught up in a whirlwind. I read Dante's Inferno, modern day version, called Gehenna. I highly recommend you get that book. It's a great read. Gehenna by Paul Thigpen. And he makes no bones about it. He says this is a modern day version of Dante's Inferno, I think 14th century Italian poet. He goes down to these circles and these levels of hell. And one circle of hell where lust is, the people are caught up in this whirlwind and they can't stop. They can't ground themselves. And there's this flying around. They're trying to get a hold of something and they can't grab anything. And it's very torturous what they're going through. They can't ever ground themselves. And so it's kind of like our sexual sins. In really, really bad cases, what happens? You know where I touched on this last week. Erectile dysfunction comes in at. It's not that. Let me just make this plain. Guys are using Viagra today because they're having erectile dysfunction. The reason why they're having erectile dysfunction is because I'm telling you right now, this is bottom line. These men that are having erectile dysfunction, even young guys, 20, 30, 40 years old, they're so immersed with pornographic images up here. I can really talk about this. They have so many images going on up here, and they like sex. They want to have sex, but what happens? They can't stop it. The images are just spinning around in their mind. They're literally going from the twins to the blonde to the brunette to the two midgets to the camels to the goats, and they can't stop on any one. They literally cannot stop on any one image. They're trying to pick one, their favorite fantasy, but they can't stop because their mind is like, brrr, and they panic. They lose their erection and they can't have sex. They can masturbate like that, but they can't perform sexually with their wives. That's their whirlwind, right? So what happens when you enter the domain of the whore? Proverbs 6:32 says, whoever commits adultery, all sex marries you. The first time you had sex, you were married. If you don't get that thing right, what are you doing with every relationship after that? You're committing adultery. Whoever commits adultery is a fool, and he destroys his very own soul. That's your soul right there, them bricks. That's your soul. We destroy that thing. That's your decision maker. That's your feelings, your emotions. So number one, when you enter the domain of the whore, you become subject to the laws of the whore's domain. Basically, that demon has a right to be in your life, has a right to operate and just try to trip you up even more. It's kind of like when you enter Japan. Are you subject to Japan's laws? I mean, I know you have SOFA, but you break a law in Japan, I know. Japan has a claim to you, right? You break a law in Texas. Let's say you move to Ohio. What happens if they catch you in Ohio? Can Ohio try you for a Texas law? Nope. What will they do, though? It's called extradite. They'll extradite you back there to Texas and you'll stand trial. So there's one. Number two, when you enter the domain of the whore, you enter into the spirit realm illegally without proper covering. That's sin. Sin. And one of the things that happens, I'll just put that up there. One of the things that happens, the first time you have sex, let's say you were a teenager at home, you had sex, still live with your parents. You begin to leave your parental covering because you're married now. And the man becomes your head, particularly you ladies. And you as a man, you're after having sex. You leave your parental covering. Now you're the man, but you're 16, 17 years old, and you have wives and don't even know it. Making sense. Stop me if you got questions. Anybody have questions? Disagreements? I don't mind. So, I have to share this part right here. Because excuse me. One of the things that happens for women, they become multi-married. The man becomes multi-married, the woman becomes multi-headed. What that means is, if you read Genesis 3:16, it starts talking about how, they'll have relations and her desire will be for him, but he's going to rule over her. There's a oneness, there's a one flesh thing happening when you get when you have sex. What this means is that this man becomes your head. Whether you know it or not, like it or not, believe it or not, this man becomes your head. He's your husband. But that was just a high school fling. He's your husband. You're married to him. And then you leave that relationship, you go on to relationship B, C, D, and E. That's how many husbands you have. And these things will compete. Them things will talk to you. And you haven't thought about these guys in 5 years, whatever. You're married to guy F. But these images, things, they'll come back to you. These memories, these touches, these triggers will come back to you. We went over all this last week with the soul. What I'm getting at, we met a lady. We were doing a Father's Day church service type of thing. It was a step program, testosterone. We had the men doing a step program, and I was narrating that thing. And we had this woman. She was gifted in the arts. I mean, she put on great productions. I mean, awesome productions. Woman, very gifted, creative. And she was helping us getting everything together. And during the narration, we were going through a full run through, and I said, one of the things I said that something along the lines that men are the head of the family. The mantle of leadership is on men. And she said, whoa, wait, you're going to say something like that? I said, yeah. She said, yeah, I can't be a part of this because I don't believe in that. And she literally left us hanging. She walked out. She's part of our church. She walked out and left us hanging. We finished the show. We practiced everything, did the show. But we asked her what happened. And she said, in my marriage, me and my husband, it's 50-50. Is that true? Is that true? Some of you don't know. She said, in my house, me and my husband, it's 50-50. There's two heads in my house. And I said, let me help you out, sis. This is why she walked away. I said, anything with two heads is a freak of nature. You ever seen a two-headed snake, two-headed dog, two-headed turtle, things like that? Two-headed marriage? There's no such thing. That doesn't mean that Sandy can't think and lead at times, because I know there's times when I'm messing up and I'm just not in condition to lead, and I know she's taking the lead. I know she is. But when it comes down to it, I'm the leader of the house. I just am. And I got to say this, men. As the leader of the house, I'm going to tell you right now, that's not you. Men, the leader of the house, this is you down there. That's your wife and kids. Do you see the difference? You serve them. You lay down your life for them. You want them to go farther than you. That's another. So we talked to this woman much later on when she was about to leave Ireland, and she came to us and she apologized. She said, Nick and Sandy, I apologize to you guys, because I thought when you said that if you're the man of the house, you're ruling over her, you're dominating her, and she's basically your servant. She said, I had a wrong understanding of that. She said, I've seen the way you guys interact. What you guys have it's awesome. And we dug around a little bit, and she said that she opened up and she said that the reason why it's 50-50 in her house, she can't trust a man, is because the way she was raised. She saw how the dad treated her mom, divorce, then how the stepdad treated the mom. And she said, I will never let a man rule over me like that. Make sense? Yeah. So whose fault is it that she was messed up? It was two men at least. All right? So multi-headed, multi-married. Number 3, you violate the commandments. Not to commit adultery and to flee fornication. As soon as you violate that, you're sinning. Don't commit adultery. Run from fornication. I told you, there's a debate. Is porn permissible? Is porn recreational? Is porn therapeutic? And what does the Bible say? It literally says, run from fornication. Run from porn. The scripture says, flee fornication. Run. You curse your foundations, you have sin in your foundation. If you're married, I'm telling you, let's say this is couple A. Couple A, this is what they're just dating right now. And he has a character, she has a character, but it's coming together as one. What is their wall? What does their marriage look like? They're not even married yet. What is all this? What does this represent? Look at all them weak bricks. What does this represent? Sin. What kind of sins? Definitely sexual sins, but what this is a reflection of, this is a record of what they're going to be like in the future if they don't change this now. And so basically, when I look at a record like this, when I do pre-marriage counseling with people, I look at their record. Have you guys had sex yet? When's the last time you masturbated? Do you have any kids, STDs? And I go on a very exhaustive list, and because you have to ask these questions. And if they've been having premarital sex, basically what they're telling me, you've been dating for 6 months, you've already been having premarital sex. What you're telling me is that you're ignorant, you're impatient, you're undisciplined, you're disobedient. You're dishonoring each other. And then now here's the wedding day. Does that change overnight? The record already shows that I don't know what I'm doing. This is heavy, but it makes sense, guys? You guys okay? Okay, 2 new guys back there. Does it make sense so far? Do you feel an ouch? You don't feel ouch? I'll get on you, man. Look, because we're recording this, I'm going to leave you alone, but I'll get you after. So, what happens, these people, what's in their foundation? This is their relationship foundation. What's in there? These are whoredoms. This is sin. This is destructive. It's going to fall. And I don't see why people are surprised when marriages don't last. When you went into a marriage, you look like this. And then now we're surprised that a marriage didn't last? What do you think was supposed to happen? See, this is what I was telling people last week, that you want to live happily ever after, you have to sow happily ever after seeds, which means you got to get all this junk out. You got to get that out. You got to get that out. What's that record show? Does the record show happily ever after, or does the record show I'm cutting corners and compromising? Making sense? Okay, let me move on. This is big right here. When you enter the domain of the whore, you set in motion a negative law of yielding and bondage. You read Romans 6:16. That's referred to as the law of yielding and bondage. What that means is whatever you yield to, you become a slave to it. And it goes on to say you can yield to good stuff and be a slave to good stuff. It's good to be a slave for Christ, or you can be a slave to bad habits. Either way, whatever you yield to, you become a slave to it. You keep yielding to that masturbation habit, that porn habit, that, I won't say the name, but there's some places out in town that you can go to for sexual stuff. Dude, you keep yielding to that, you become a slave to that. And I showed you when I tied up Philip last week, or a couple weeks ago with that rope. Every time he sinned, another strand, another strand. Every time he sinned, another strand, another strand, another strand. And what happened to him after he had like 30 strands on him? Could he get out? But he kept on sinning. He was caught up in the whirlwind, kept wrapping him up. Is he getting freer or more bound? He was totally bound and he couldn't get out. So then, you set in motion a negative law of sowing and reaping. Go read Galatians. It said, be not deceived. God is not mocked. Whatsoever a man sows, that's what you're going to reap. So if you're sowing sin into your life and into your marriage, you're going to reap sin. Not complicated. This is a big one. You become a weapon or an instrument in Satan's arsenal. Somebody read Romans 6:13. Who's got that? Somebody read that nice and loud. You guys take a picture of it. I need somebody to read it nice and loud.
Not present your members to sin as instruments for unrighteousness, but present yourselves to God as those who have been brought from death to life, and your members to God as instruments for righteousness.
You hear this? He says, do not present your body for the devil to use you for deadly things, but present your bodies to God and let him use you for righteous things. I can sit here and tell you for 30 straight minutes about people I've known that have done wicked things with their bodies. Intentionally wicked things with their bodies. I have 5 people, maybe 6 men that I've known over my life that have contracted AIDS, and I told you contracted for a reason. Go look up that word. They contracted AIDS, and what they did, because they say, I didn't ask for AIDS, I'm a victim, and I'm hurt, I'm ashamed. And so what one of them did, he went to a high school and started having sex with high school girls, impregnating them, giving them HIV. Not impregnating, but just trying to give them HIV. Why? I've had females that we minister to who've gotten herpes and things like that. And now they feel like I'm a victim. You don't understand what I feel like. So let me help you join the club so you can get a clue how bad it is to be a victim. And so they try to give other guys STDs. I had one guy, Air Force guy, years ago. He's a deacon. And he said, he's probably 30 years old at the time. And he came and confessed to me that he was wrestling with homosexuality, particularly with younger men, these hookups. And this is what he told me. He said, I was molested as a child. And he said, I didn't ask to be molested. I wasn't homosexual, but it was like I had a target on my back. And this is what happens. I'm telling you, you get targeted. And people in his family would take advantage of him. And now that he's a grown man, he said, I've been having sex with men. I'm married and have kids. I've been having sex with men on the down low over the last 10 years since I've been in the Air Force. And he said, I said, so what, why? And he said, let me be honest with you. He said, because I was a victim. And then he said, now it's my turn. It's my turn to be the predator. Isn't that deadly? He said, I was on the receiving end now, and now it's my turn. And I can give you so many stories of stuff like this. And so basically, we let Satan use us. How many of us, real simple, I'll make it real simple. How many of you have shared porn with somebody else? Like you got some pictures, bruh, look. Devil's using you. How many of you forward images? Encouraged it, didn't say anything about it. In your barracks right now. Didn't take a stand. You know it's wrong, but you won't take a stand. Or you'll participate. That's you right there. That's me when we do it. I'm being used by Satan. You become physically weakened and infirmed. Again, dude, this thing takes a toll on you. I've seen so many. My sister one time, she was so molested, she was used and abused. I'll share a lot of this next week when we talk about exposing secrets, how do you expose secrets, and how to get fixed. But one of my sisters, she's passed now. She passed a few years ago, but she was molested by my dad. Years ago, I was probably 9 years old or 10 years old. She was 1 year younger than me. She was molested by my dad. And for 40 years, it was a slow suicide for her. And she was beautiful, slow suicide. And so what ends up happening, I happened to go home to Kansas City. I was TAD there for like a month for some kind of school. And I would take her to church with me twice a week. They had some kind of revival thing going on. I'd take her to church with me. And I promise you, as God is my witness, she would come with me to this revival thing that was going on. And I didn't have a rental, and so she would pick me up and take me and bring me back. And so she came to all the meetings with us. And I watched her. She dropped me off at the billeting one night. We're talking, and she laughed. And she laughed. And it just shocked me because I said, I have not heard you laugh like that since we were kids. It was an authentic laugh. It was genuine. It was the real her. And she said, I feel liberated. I feel free. And I'm looking at her, even as I'm talking to her, before, when she carries sin, she's carrying this. I don't know if you can see this or not, if you can discern this or not, but people are gray, they're ashy, they're just mopey, and you can just see it. There's no life in them. I'm talking about literal gray faces. As I'm talking to her, the glory of God was just coming out of her, and she just began to glow. She had blood in her cheeks, and she was smiling. And she says, I feel so good right now. I feel so good right now. And then she said, but you're going to leave in a couple of weeks, and I'm going back to and she's going to go right back into it. We had a young man in the solitary confinement who, so many people. We had one guy who actually they put you on suicide watch. Some of these guys, they put them on suicide watch. I think, was there one back there? And so when you're on suicide watch, you don't have a full metal door. It's a bar. It's just bars. And they take all your clothes. They leave you your underwear, and they give you this like smock. And they put a guard in a seat right in front of your cell. So you're on suicide watch. And he's watching you the whole time. There was one guy in there. He didn't have anything to cut himself with, so he used his fingernails. And he would cut himself, and he would draw demonic pictures. I mean, he had this mural of something demonic, an angel with wings and all kind of demonic stuff. And usually guards stop him from doing that because it's not acceptable behavior. But this guy did it all the time, so they just let him alone. And his whole wall was just blood. We had another guy, he was just pasty-faced and wild-eyed, and he was being possessed or oppressed by demons. You pray with them, bring peace back in them, bring the word of God back into their circumstances, and kind of get them helped out. But they become physically weakened and infirmed. Again, you create demonic covenants. You're pledging your body and your soul, not your spirit. You're pledging your body and your soul. And so this guy right here, this guy, describe that sin in there. It's pollution. Describe it. I've been giving you a lot of information. What is this? A lot of porn. What does that say about his character? It's ruined. What does this represent? What did I tell you all this represents? The undisciplined, can't be trusted, compulsive, all of that. And so this is the thing, and this is part of next week too. I'll elaborate on this next week. This guy, his spirit man is in there, but it's weak and it's surrounded by pollution. What has to happen, let's say you created this demonic covenant. One of the things that has to happen, let's say you go to Bible study. How many times do Christians go to church in any given year? There's 2 days. What are they? There's Christmas and there's Easter. Did they make a change? Wait, let me mix that up some because it might make a change. I went to church twice a year. Did I make a change? What if I continue just doing one drop at a time? Is it going to affect this? Over time, maybe. Once or twice. Bloop, bloop, bloop. One Bible study. One or two church services since you've been on island. What? I'm not calling you out, Jacob. And so what happens, if this is kind of precursor for next week, if you are going to get cleansed and healed from the things of God, the degree to which you get cleansed and healed and forgiven and delivered is up to you. But it's a reflection of your will. Do you have the willpower to get it right? Because sometimes I want to do it, but I can't. I'm so convicted, but I can't. I want to, but I can't. I'm weak. At some point, you got to be broken about this thing and say, enough, I give up. And the degree to which you go to get healed is the degree to which God will heal you. What I mean by that is, what I did, I'm an extreme kind of guy. I said, God, I want it all. I want it all. And so what happens, I want you to see what happens here. I was going to Bible studies, reading my Bible. I was going to church. I was doing outreach. I was sharing the gospel, leading people to Christ. What's happening here? See, this is God's stuff. This is the Word of God. This is prayer. This is meditation. This is study. This is outreach. This is works. What's happening to my soul? Huh? It's getting cleansed. There's a word for that. What is it? There's a transformation occurring. And so what's happening? See, it's up to you. You can do the eyedropper method. Go to church. How many, I don't want UDP. How many Christians do you know that should be here right now, but they're not here? Bloop. I went to church one time when I was out there for 6 months. We got a guy, he called me late on Saturday evening. It was a pastor, grandpa in Colorado. And I hope you're listening to this. He said, this pastor, he seems legit. He said, I have a grandson out there. He's at Hanson. And I got excited because this is what I do. They heard me on the phone after midnight. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm tired. We just got through doing Saturday night service. I'm tired, but this is important. This is important to me. This is why I got on the phone. The grandpa sent me this young Marine's contact info. He says he's on Camp Hanson. Here's his WhatsApp number. Here's blah, 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 blah. And I get a hold of him, and I just text him, and he answers right back. I said, dude, you're awake? He says, yeah, I'm awake. I said, this is Pastor Nick, your dad, your grandpa, da-da-da, can we talk? He said, yeah. I called him up, and I said, how much time do you have left on island? He said, less than a month. I'm still trying to reach him. I said, look, even though you only have 1 month left on island, you can still get a lot of this very quickly. You can get immersed in some of the things that we do, and you'll get some momentum when you get out of here. But what does it say about his first 5 months over here? He ain't been to church not one time. And I asked him, is he serious about the God stuff? I asked you the same thing. Are you serious about the God stuff? When you start poking around in their records, they're not serious about the God stuff. It's up to you. The degree to which you're going to get freed and delivered, the degree to which you're going to be sanctified is the degree to which you search for God. And that's why I asked you the questions. And on a scale of 1 to 10, what kind of Christian are you? Show me your work. Show me your activities. It's true. There's so much I can talk about. So you become engaged to the spirit of harlotry and disengaged from Christ. I'm not talking about your salvation. You got to figure that one out. Because if you're saved, this stuff goes away. You should be stopping doing some of this stuff. There should be a part of you that just dies to this. I understand there's a lot going on here. There's a whole other question we talk about. Are you unsaved? Were you ever saved? So there's that. Any questions on this? Because I'm going to turn the corner. This is bad. I'm going to show you the good stuff here in just a second. Any questions? Any comments? You sure? This is heavy stuff. I showed you 2 slides of a lot of heavy, woe is me stuff. Okay, let's talk about what it's supposed to be like. Now, this is the good stuff. You want to take notes of this. God had an original intent for sex. God is the only one qualified to tell you the meaning of sex, the intent of sex, what it was for. He's the only one qualified to tell you because he created it. And so there's this thing called the tabernacle. Now, if you don't know the tabernacle, if you study the Old Testament, before they actually set up the city in Jerusalem and everything, they had to have a moving tabernacle. It's like your CP tent or something like that. And you had to be mobile. You had to move whenever the tribes were moving. So, but whether it was a tent or whether it was actual temple, they had the same setup. The priest would annually enter that right there, the Holy of Holies. I'll explain in a second. Annually, the priest would enter the Holy of Holies and make atonement for the people and sacrifices for the people. But what he had to do first, he had to go through these stations. So he entered here, and these are called the courts, the courtyard, the outer courts and inner courts right here. That's number 2, that's the holy place, and that's number 3, the Holy of Holies. 3 different sections. He would have to go right here to the brazen altar, brazen laver. Now it's getting serious because the goal is the presence of God. And then he would have to go into the holy place where he's alone, and there's the lampstand of illumination, there's a table of showbread, and there's an altar of incense, and there's a veil right there. That's a curtain. That's a curtain. And then you go into by himself, behind this thing right there, and that's the Ark of the Covenant. All right, the very presence of God. What does that have to do with sex? It has everything to do with sex. It's very parallel. You guys remember, I don't know if you guys had this, but we had these projectors when I was a kid, and the teachers had like one clear slide, and it had a picture on it, and then she would take another second slide and put it on top, and it would complement the slide that was on top of it. You ever seen those? This is kind of the priest's job and today's job of a husband. When you have sex with your wife, the goal is to also experience God. I'm not trying to be freaky about this or anything like that, but watch this. So this is the original intent. As you go study Exodus 25, Leviticus, and Numbers, you'll figure it out. The tabernacle, again, is these 3 places right here. The outer courts are likened to your body. The holy place is likened to your soul. The Holy of Holies is the spirit, your spirit man. That's where God is. You need to know this. Remember this. Your body is sense-conscious, your soul is self-conscious, and your spirit is God-conscious. It's very important that you remember that. So then what happens, the priest, annually, he's supposed to go into the presence of God, and he had to prepare himself, because you just don't go into the presence of God any old kind of way, nasty, unworthy, because I've read different commentaries. How many of you have heard that that the priest of old used to wear a rope around his ankle and some bells on the hem of his garment, and then he'd walk around and you could hear all the jingles going on and whatnot? He's in the Holy of Holies. You can't see him, but if the jingles stopped, would you know? That he dropped dead. He did something wrong. He made a mistake in the presence of God, and he died. And so what would happen, they would, "Hey, Judah, you all right?" And they don't hear nothing. They'll drag him out, and "Joshua, you're up. And you better be ready, because you got to go in and make atonement for the people. You got to go into the very presence of God, the Ark of the Covenant." Right? Commentaries go both ways on this. Some commentaries say, yeah, that wasn't a thing. Some commentaries say, yeah, it was a thing. Really not important. What's important is that the priest would go to the Ark of the Covenant and come encounter the presence of God. What does this have to do with the husband? Well, I'm going to show you the path into God's presence for the priest, but it parallels the path for a husband. Now check this out. First of all, there's a bronze altar, that thing right there, bronze altar. The bronze altar represented confessions, sacrifice, praise, love, giving, and laying down your life. What does that have to do with the husband? How does the husband do that? Quickly.
Through the way he is a husband on a daily basis and his interactions.
What does sacrifice mean?
Making the coffee in the morning.
Making coffee in the morning. Do you drink coffee? Yeah, that's for you.
Doing something you don't
That's not so much sacrifice.
doing something for the other person.
Like what?
Something you may not like, but they do. Cleaning her car.
Cleaning up her car. Is that what she wants?
Is that?
Is that what she really wants?
No, that's not what she did.
See, we got to figure out what she wants, even though that's probably a good idea. And putting clothes in the hamper instead of on the floor, maybe. Go ahead.
I would say sacrifice is being selfless and putting your kids and your wife before you, so putting their interests before your own self.
Yeah. Especially when you get home. This was, I forget what study I read. On average, how much time does a father spend with their kid in the home? This is an old study. It's like 10 years ago. On average, how much time does a dad spend with a kid in a home?
30 minutes,
2 hours.
30 minutes,
45 minutes. Anybody else?
Like 6 hours.
It's like 5 minutes. Literally 5 minutes. When he gets home from work, he comes and, hey, TV. Bloop, 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 bloop. No interaction with the kids at all. 5 minutes. And of that 5 minutes, half of it was spent yelling at the kids, correcting the kids, spanking the kids, correcting the kids. What does that say about these dads? Don't answer that. Just think about it. Dude, sacrifice. What does sacrifice mean? You got to find out what she needs. I'm telling you, I made so many mistakes doing this. There are times when I've been gone all day ministering and whatnot, and Sandy got home, she's on edge, and I'm thinking, sacrifice, I got to sacrifice. I'm going to give her some quality time alone. So I get the kids dressed, and I tell her, honey, I'm taking kids out there. You have time to yourself. And I'm packing them up. We get out in the car, and I'm about to take off, and she comes out on the balcony. Nick! I said, what is it? What are you doing? I said, I'm trying to give you... I want to be with you. We want to be with you. I want to... What? I didn't know. Why didn't you say so? Because you're supposed to kind of learn this stuff. I give you roaches. And we go up to our foyer, apartment B, apartment A. That's our apartment right there, elevator. 2 big roaches right there, dead for a couple of weeks. As a matter of fact, I know they're dead because they were over here and I kicked them that way. And so they were there for a week or two after that. And then we're leaving the house. And as we're leaving the house, I hear Sandy sigh. She says, and there's something to, and I'll kid you not, I said, wait a minute. Have you been wanting me to move those roaches? She said, yeah. Why didn't you just tell me? Why didn't you ask me? Because I don't care about the roaches. I don't care. I don't care about no stupid roaches, but it bothered her every time. She didn't tell me. But see, this is sacrifice. You're supposed to learn. Here's another one. Guys, when you have your first child, or any child, usually the first one, though, you get practice. The baby's breastfeeding, just a couple months old. It's 2 o'clock in the morning, baby cries. Baby's supposed to be breastfed. Guys, what do you do? Go ahead, John. What do you do, John?
Stay asleep. No.
Stay asleep. What do you do? Yeah, say it. Hey, honey, babies, I'd love to help you, but and then you go back to sleep. Most guys do this. What are you supposed to do? Because why? Why do you get up? Because I can't do. Baby's not gonna latch on to me. What's up? Ain't no reason for both of us to be up right now. What are you supposed to do, guys? I'm telling you right now. You have 2 options, basically. You can, option A, stay there, go to sleep, and just say, honey, the baby, okay, because one. Or option number 2, I'm going to get up with you. And she said, no, you really don't have to get up. No, that's okay, baby. It's okay. And you sit with her, and you rub her shoulders or something, rub her feet while she's breastfeeding. That's sacrifice. I don't want to do that. But which one? What's guy A communicating to her? I don't really care. Yeah, you got this. I care, but I'm going to show you how much I care. And what is guy B communicating to her? How much he cares. Big difference. Here's a big one. This is such a big one, man. I don't have this one right. Just listening to her. They talk so much. They don't shut up. And they just go on and on with all the details. And you're like, this is so painful. Get to the point. But you can't do that. You can think that, and you can just nod your head. You can just nod your head and say, yeah, wow. And remember this. You always throw in that's got to be tough. And that kind of covers a lot of things. But you have to listen, because we don't like listening. We're like, get to the point kind of people. Guys, that's us. Get to the point. I don't need the details. She needs to give you the details. And you got to, And put down your phone, turn off the TV, put down your book, whatever, and give her 100. God, how long is this going to take? Yeah. That's a sacrifice. And when you sacrifice like this, you're going to get that paid back. And you know what, guys? If you just give just a little bit, it keeps her alive. Just a little bit. You don't have to give her a whole lot, honestly. Just a little bit. Women know, your wife knows how to live off of just a little. Because we're seeing right over our heads. Seriously. Making sense, guys? That's what sacrifice means. That's all that. Praise, love. You got to do that before you have sex with her. See, your goal in the morning was, honey, I'm feeling kind of frisky, so tonight we're going to be playing some bingo, right? And so you want to have sex tonight, and you're already dropping clues. Well, throughout your day, you should be doing this right here, preparing yourself. Men, yes? As the priest of the house. Number 2, that bronze laver, that thing right there. It's for cleansing. For the priest, he had to wash himself, and there was like a forgiveness, get your soul right, purification of your spirit and everything right. This is an easy one right here. Bodily, you as a husband, wash your tail. Take a shower. Most women don't like sweaty, funky men. They don't. Most guys in the porn flicks you see where the guy's all sweating, working out, and the woman's like, oh, hot and bothered. That's a man's fantasy. Now, if you have a woman who likes sweat like that, that's your, whatever, go for it. That's you. But most women will say, don't touch me, you're sweaty, take a shower. You're nasty. Take a shower. Brush your teeth. Right? Seriously. You should not have nasty underwear on either. Skid marks and all that. I have to say this. You think I'm kidding? Guys are nasty. I was a company gunny, and I'd go through the barracks and, you nasty, get over here. You're just nasty. What's wrong with you? And you have to correct these guys, man, because no one else told them. And I'm telling you right now, how many of you have ever worked with Marines and they happen to have a bad BO day or a bad breath day? Did you call them out? Most times we don't call them out. I think in the Marines we should call them out. Dude, is that you? Bruh. Dude, take a shower, deodorant, wash them camis. What's it been, 3 weeks since you washed those things? Yeah. Brush your teeth. Dude, is that your breath? You're doing him a favor. Don't avoid these conversations. Help that guy out. You guys know what I'm talking about. So there's a cleansing. Plus, the cleansing is also spiritual cleansing in a mindful cleansing. What do I mean by that? Quickly, because I got to speed this up. How do I cleanse my mind? Say it. Praying, definitely praying. What am I praying about? Confessing what? Because the goal is to experience God. And if you want to experience God, because that's some good sex when you experience God. I'll get to that in a minute. But what ends up happening, you have to hit these stations. You got to do these stations, get this thing right. You have to prepare yourself for sex. You just can't have sex. Just let me fast forward. What this means when you're talking about cleansing, soulfully, it means the pornographic images that are in your head. You're running around your PT and you're seeing a girl running around with booty shorts on or spandex, and you're taking pictures. You're watching her work out. And you're seeing panty lines or you're seeing cleavage or something like that. And your mental pictures, I'm going to use that later. You're polluted. And then you're going to try to have sex with your wife with those images. You think God's a part of that? Right? Makes sense. Okay. So anyway, you got to, Father, forgive me. Help me just get this trash out of my mind, Lord. Just Father, get this right. Then, it's going to get serious because each step that you take, you're getting closer to the presence of God. Every single step. So now you have to take, you've left the courts, the physical. Now you're into the holy place. And in the holy place, there's these items right here. The table of showbread. What does that represent? For the priest, it was fellowship, supper of the Lamb, intimacy. For you as a man, what does the husband, what does the table of showbread represent? It's not complicated. Dinner. Yeah, sit down at the dinner table. Turn the TV off. So something happens. This is one of the best things ever when you sit down and have a meal with somebody. You know, even if you go to, you guys got put on lockdown, you can't go out in the town and eat anymore, can you? You had like a window of a couple of days. Bunch of losers. So, but what happens, understand that when you ever seen, particularly today, tables full of people, whole family or whatever there, 6, 7 people, 10 people there, and most of them on their smartphones. That's not intimacy. Put your phone down. Connect. Talk. Intimacy. Cook her a dinner. Right? Take her out and you pick the place. Don't go down that conversation, that road. Let's go out to dinner, honey. I want to take you out to dinner. And then you ask her, so where do you want to go? And she says, I don't know. Where do you want to go? I don't know. And you know not to answer that question because you're not going to, that's not what she wants. What she wants you to do, this is part of your sacrifice. You choose a place. You set everything up. You set it up. Say, honey, we're going to try this place. I've already made reservations, blah, 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 blah. Basically, you're going, woman. Kind of, but not. Right? And take her out there. She wants that. You got to do it. You have something? Okay, so then there's the lampstand. This is very important. There's a lampstand inside there. It's illumination. Basically, learn something new about your wife. You know, Bible says, husbands, dwell with your wives according to knowledge. Learn something new about your wife every week. I would have said every day, but that's kind of hard. I remember Mark Gungor talked about that. It's kind of difficult. But learn something new about your wife every week. And if you're studying her, exploring, trying to figure her out, what is that? Does she know you're looking, digging around? Yeah. Is that good for her? She wants to be interesting. She wants to be, she's a mystery. You need to figure it out. Okay? What happened? Wait a minute. Oh, battery's running low. I didn't plug it in. Yay. I don't know what's happening now. Okay, what's going on, guys? Help me out. It's frozen. Escape. Yeah, it's locked up. Why? Shut it and open it. Let me do this here. It's locked. Okay, we got calm. Let's try that. Altar of incense. That's basically praying with her. Praying with her. One of the most important things you can do is pray with your wife. Literally take her by the hands and just pray. Bless her with your words. I can't tell you how important this is because a lot of guys, many guys just don't pray over their wives. And then when you try to do it, it's foreign to them or it's awkward, whatever. If your wife knows anything about God, she wants you to pray over her. So don't be afraid to pray over your wife. Grab her and make it a habit and pray over your kids and just, even if you're leaving out the door for, I'm going to work, honey, and you only have 30 seconds. Father, just bless her today. Protect her today. Father, just speak with her today. Encourage her today. Whatever she's wrestling with, Father, I just, as I'm gone, I pray, Lord, that she draws close to you today. You're her strength. You're her joy. Today, Father, be with her. Yeah, and then audibly to her face. When we've done marriage conferences, I'll have couples pray over each other. And this happens every time. I'll have the men pray first over their wives. And every time the wife starts crying, every single time. And I'll say, what's going on? For his sake, I'll say, what's going on with you, young lady? And she'll say, he's never done this before. And then I say, what else? She said, well, his words feel so good being prayed over me. And then what else? I wish he would do this more. And the guy's face is like, what? He didn't know. He didn't know. But your words are very, very powerful. Your words are validating and affirming. All right, so pray over your wife. Oh, come on. Why wouldn't you pray over your wife? And then there's this veil. You need to understand this veil. We talked about this in the biological function or the anatomies. That veil represents a separation between the holy place and the holy of holies in the physical realm, in the tabernacle, in the tent. Sexually, you as husband of your house have been working on this, being nice, getting your mind right, getting your body right, getting your spirit right. That veil right there is her hymen. The membrane that covers her vaginal opening, where it was, because the hymen gets torn and split. What happens when you go beyond that veil? You're supposed to experience God, the Holy of Holies. And sex is an act of worship. Sex is an act of worship. question is, what have you been worshiping? Because whatever you examine what you've been doing with your sex. Like this. You examine what you've been doing with your sex, and this is a picture of what you've been worshiping, what I've been worshiping. Making sense? And this is why we got to get this clean before we connect with our wives. And I'm telling you, what happens when God does show up, it's called Shekinah glory. Anybody know about Shekinah glory? Shekinah glory is defined as the visible, tangible, manifested presence of God. And so there have been times, it doesn't happen all the time, but there have been frequent times when my wife and I are together and the Spirit, it's like a cloud. People describe it as a cloud. And it's like you're caught up in a different realm. Literally caught up in a different realm. You're like, what is going on right now? And you know that what you're doing is not natural. Praise the Lord. It's not supposed to be natural. Sex is supposed to be supernatural. It really is. And so I've made too many Christian couples who are not experiencing the presence of God. And all that means is something is wrong. And again, it doesn't happen every time. But when it does, I know it's not just that level anymore. Remember I told you the 3 levels? The physical, the soul, and the spirit? You're on a spiritual level engaging with your wife right now. And you know God is right there blessing and approving. How do I know this? Because of this right here. Oh, did I take it out? Man, I took it out. That's terrible. There's I'll send a slide out. Make sure you're on 30 out there or something like that. I'll send a slide out with all the points of the Song of Solomon. And the Song of Solomon, you go through chapter basically 4 and 5, and you'll see a man and a woman that get married. And in previous chapters, they want each other physically. They want each other sexually in a bad way. And they have aphrodisiacs going on. So they got there's a lot going on. Wine, cinnamon, aloes, myrrhs, and nuts, raisins, all kind of stuff. And all this stuff represents eroticism, arousal. And what happens 2 times before they actually get married, he tells her, he says, whoa, 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 do not awaken love before it's time. Let's not do this. And so he goes on in chapter 4, they're actually married, and this man, you watch it, take your time reading chapter 4. You watch this man making love to his wife, and he doesn't even touch her, and he's making love to her with his words. And then right around the end of that chapter, he actually starts saying some things, and his 5 senses are involved now, and he's talking about some things, about things he sees, things he smells, things he hears, things he tastes and touches. There's a lot going on there. I think I cut it out because I thought we were going to run out of time. So maybe I'll insert it in the future. But right after they've consummated the relationship, chapter 5, verse 1, God is right there. And God is blessing them. And this man, he says, I have come into my garden. Dude, they're talking about a garden. He says, I'm looking at my wife, and she's like a garden sealed. And my fountain's about to flow. And it's just waiting to burst. This is what's in the Bible. And when they do consummate the relationship, this man, he's like, not really, but he's kind of like smoking a cigarette, saying, you know, I have come into my garden. I have drank my milk. I have partaken of my wife's sweets. And this dude, I think he uses the possessive pronoun maybe like 8 times, 9 times, all in that one. Mine, 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 mine. And right there, God tells him, drink deeply and enjoy. God is telling him, I approve of what you're doing. God approves it. It's so awesome. And this is why I know God is supposed to be a part of it. And when he does show up, I've had people, not in a creepy way or anything like that. Well, we were doing a Bible study at our house one time, and this young lady told us, she wasn't so young, but she said, I had a vision. We were doing a Bible study in your living room, and your bedroom door was shut, and there was light just bursting out of your bedroom. I said, yeah, that's about right. Yeah. And so, but that's the Shekinah glory. Shekinah glory. And once you go Shekinah glory and you experience God is right there, a part of it, you get addicted to it, and you don't want, everything else is cheap. You don't want anything else. Making sense, guys? Okay, I'm sorry I don't have the other slide. Let's go ahead and stand up. Can you turn that off, Israel?